And one of the things I had a question for you was once you went to LA and you went to Atlantic, um, and you start working with bigger artists who probably have like a system in place already. So like sometimes like there might be like, and like NLE Choppa, I don't even know if I'm saying that name right.
Yeah, you're
But
saying
like,
it right.
so are there times where you are kind of just given a project on Pro Tools and someone says, "Hey, can you mix this?" Like, are there big records or just good songs that you've been like, how many artists have you worked for that wouldn't know you? Like if they were, on the bus, like, oh, that's the guy who mixed my song, like, is there a lot of that? Or are you
Oh
always
yeah,
kind of working with the artist? Can you elaborate a little bit on the differences of the
yeah, absolutely,
relationships?
absolutely. As a mixer, like if you're just a freelance mixer, you are rarely meeting the artist. Choppa, I've been lucky to record him as well as mix him, so we built a very good relationship. And you know, so we actually know each other, obviously. But yeah, a lot of the ASAP Rocky stuff I did, never met him. What else? Hunter Hayes, never met him. Did some stuff for LA Due, never met her. I even hit her up on IG one time, like, oh, I love working on your stuff. Never even heard back. She's like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't know. Like, yeah, so so yeah, you're really just hired as a mixer, and you might have a little bit of interaction with them, and if they're in town. I mean, that's the other thing is like they might be on the other side of the country or the other side of the world, so
Right.
you and especially with the major label stuff, you're not really dealing with the artists. You're dealing more with the A&Rs,
Yeah,
sometimes the
the team.
producers. Yeah. So they have people. The artist doesn't care. They just listen to it and want to, you know, want to hear if it sounds good or not.
Now, do you prefer it one way or the other? I guess in some ways it might be nice to just kind of be like, hey, here, okay, I don't need to hear anything. I can sit and do this on my own time, and mix and master it. Here you go, done. I only have to deal with one person. Or do you prefer kind of being really in the mix and really having your hands like when the hands on the project when they're making it?
Um, Kind of both. I mean, back when we used to work together in Boston, I used to, mix everything right there on the spot, and
Yep.
uh, that I feel like that forced me to move a little faster on the mix, which pros and cons to that. Now, since I'm sitting in my own studio mixing somebody's stuff without them here, I have a lot more free time, or not free
Mm.
time, but I have a lot more time to just spend as much time as I need on it. And there's the pros and cons with that as well. Obviously, you don't want to take too long, but I can also spend the time needed and not under these time constraints. Um, when I first moved out here, I was just mixing. I hadn't done any recording sessions, or very few, and I started to miss being in the studio with the artists and being part of that creative process, and just felt antisocial, just stuck in my studio by myself all the time. So yeah, I kind of like both. But yeah, when it comes to mixing, I do, at least the beginning of the mix, I like to do on my own, because there's a lot of like cleanup stuff that might need to be done, things that I just don't need the artist there for. I'm just trying to like get the 808 to sit right, and they're like, why do the vocals not sound right? I haven't even gotten to that yet. So yeah, sometimes it's more beneficial not to have the artist there, at least for part of it. And that's how I work with Choppa. I record them, I do a rough mix, right there on the spot. Once it's ready to be mixed, I get all the stems, and then I spend time, a few hours usually working on the song, before he even takes a listen. Send out a couple versions. He might give me some notes, and then sometimes he'll stop in the studio just to sit down with me and tweak a few things. So yeah, it's kind of good both ways, with them or without them.
Now, when it comes to you getting paid, are you usually paid up front, or do you take a percentage? Does it depend on what you're doing for the song? Some producers I know take upfront payment and percentage of 15, 20, 25%. What is a normal engineer's payment like for an artist?
for indie artists that, you know, I still work with a bunch of indie artists. Unless, you know, I've built a relationship with them already, you know, I do try and get a deposit, you know, at least get some of it up front. Especially like, you know, people hit me up on IG still, and, you know, for mixes, like people I don't know. So, you know, just gotta, you know, it can be risky. But the label stuff, that's all like legit. So basically you get the mixes, send them out when you're done, do any updates that you need to, and then invoice them for it. And that could take some time to get paid for, but they pay you. So, and then, yeah, it varies, you know, obviously I can charge a lot more to the labels because they got a lot more money, and a little less to indie artists, you know, trying to help people out. And, you know, there's a lot of good music, a lot of good artists that aren't signed to a major label and don't have that backing, that budget to pay, you know, a higher mix rate. But yeah, it definitely gets up there when you're with the labels. So, and then there's levels to that, you know, the big mixers that are out here charge thousands of dollars per mix and do like thousands of dollars per mix, you know, do them few a day, have, you know, assistants working for them. And so yeah, it's definitely a lot of levels to it.
In terms of like your business, like your personal business, do you have kind of like a vision of what you want? Do you want to kind of be like that kind of guy who has assistants? Kind of like, do you want to have your own company and own like recording house? Or are you like pumped to be where you're at and be an integral part of what's going on at this record label?
I mean, so I don't just work for Atlantic. As a mixer, I'm technically freelance. And since the whole quarantine started, they've kind of scaled back on the recording side of things. They have, you know, a bunch of studios here in Hollywood, and they're not doing as much. So, you know, I work for all the different labels. So yeah, ideally, yeah, I am doing what I want to do, freelance mixer. I wouldn't, you know, I have my own little studio here in Hollywood, and it's great. I don't do any recording here, but yeah, eventually I'd like to maybe have a studio where, you know, a specific mix room and as well as a recording room. And yeah, I mean, I do have an assistant now, just because I've been so busy.
Hell yeah.
Recording all night long and then mixing all day long. So I need help to, like, you know, mix prep. Because again, going back to what we spoke about earlier, the more you hear the song, the more involved you get with it. So, you know, if it takes me an hour or two to prep the mix, I've heard the song so many times at that point, so I lose my focus on it. So I hire somebody to kind of set it up the way I like. And yeah, you know, if it's a song that I recorded, you know, for a lot of the Choppa stuff, it's a lot easier to set up. But I do get sessions from other artists that, you know, I've never, you know, have other engineers, and I've never seen the session before. And it just takes time to go through everything and organize it, get things color coded, you know, so that when I get to the mix, I can move as fast as possible. So yeah, having an assistant definitely helps. I don't have 5 assistants like other engineers, other mixers, which would be nice.
One for each color code.
Exactly.